So, 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 I am finally leaving the UK. At long last, I'm moving out. By the way, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, hello. My name is Maria, and basically, I've been living in England for the past 11 years, consistently, and in London in particular, for the past 2 years. 2 years, I believe, yeah. And now it is finally a time for me to leave. Hence, I'm also doing the whole rebrand and stuff like that. But so while the whole rebranding, whatever else, is still in the process, I might as well, I decided, record this little video to kind of summarize my experience in London as a young entrepreneur. Because, I'm finally leaving this country that I had so many formative experiences in, and so many traumatic experiences in, and healing experiences. And honestly, I'm so ready to just leave all of this behind. This I do love the UK, don't get me wrong, but I'm just ready for greener pastures, if I may say so. And it's not the case of, oh yeah, the grass is greener elsewhere, and then going and getting disappointed. No, because I have traveled outside the UK before. I have seen what other countries have to offer, and honestly, staying here just doesn't seem worth it for me. So yeah, I'm happy to finally go. However, once again, because I have been living here for quite a while, and I have been actually trying to do the business entrepreneurial thing in London for 2 years, I decided, why don't I record a hopefully helpful video for those who might just be deciding to enter the UK and London in hopes to build a business or a startup here. So, first of all, hello and welcome, my darling humanoids, androids, reptiloids, asteroids, or whatever way you like to identify yourself as, to what was formerly Nil Hub, but because that name is absolute hell to pronounce, it is for now called life spirals, because all I seem to do is be spiraling in life, and just in general, this whole concept of spiral development and blah 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 blah, whatever, doesn't matter. Maybe I'll end up naming it something else entirely. I don't know. The main thing is, today I just want to give you some useful information, such as the living and working conditions for young entrepreneurs in London, what the kind of basic legal and financial systems here are, what the lifestyle situation is here, and just in general, how to navigate your life when you are deciding that London, for whatever reason, I'm not judging, I'm judging, but I'm not judging that for whatever reason you picked London as the place that you want to start a business or to develop yourself as maybe a creative, which, okay, developing yourself as a creative here does make sense. That is an excusable type of business in my eyes. Other business, questionable, but you know what, you do you, boo. I chose that point as well. Chose wrong, admittedly, but you know what, we live and we learn, and yeah, maybe it is not going to be a mistake for you. So here's me sharing all of the stuff that I have accumulated and gotten to know thus far, so that maybe you enjoy your time better than I did. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. And let's start with living in London. So if you have decided to move to London, chances are you have at least already visited it multiple times, hopefully. If you haven't, please, before you decide to move here, at least come here to stay for a month, so that you understand if it is at all a suitable location for you to be in. Because trust me, London is a whole other type of universe. Even if you have been living in the rest of the UK before that, so you have been living in some even major cities like Manchester or whatever, like Liverpool, Birmingham, whatever else. Even if you have been in cities in England before moving to London, trust me, it is a whole different type of animal. So before you decide to move to London for more than 3 months, make sure that you have at least been here for a period of like a month, preferably 3 months beforehand, okay? Because if you have not, nothing will prepare you for the amount of stress and chaos that living in London is. And especially if you're foreign and you're not even from England, if you haven't been living in the UK for multiple years already, if you're just moving to England, I am honestly not sure that London would be the place that you want to move to first, because it doesn't represent the British culture like at all. Yes, it does like have all the pictures of the previously queen, now king, all of the British flags and things like that, but London is very much a whole separate entity from the rest of England. It does not in any way represent England at all, besides like the Buckingham Palace being located here. That is like the only bit that is British. Everything else in London is, yeah, it's from personal experience, I would just describe it as like a kind of slightly less overpopulated New York. But considering that London is extremely densely populated and overpopulated and overpolluted, either way, it's not that much better. Neither is it worse. Like I don't know. In my mind, as somebody who has been in both, they're kind of on the same level. So it's like moving to London is like moving to New York. Like you have to be morally, spiritually, physically prepared to do so. But in the practical sense, let's talk about the geography, I guess, of London. So once again, if you have already been to London, you know that generally it is divided into zones. That is not a description methodology that I would use to describe like what the living situation here is like, but just out of general information, right? Typically, if you look on the tube map, so tube being the metropolitan in British language, generally London is divided into territories by zones. So zone 1 is the central area of London, zone 2, zone 3 is also considered kind of central London, but zone 1 is just like the tourist center of London. And then zones 2 and 3 are essentially overpriced central areas of London because they're right next to the tourist area of London. And zones 1 to 3, kind of zone 4 as well in some occasions, is generally where everything Londony is Londoning. So where all of the main events, main situations, meetings, work, everything like that, where most of the life of a Londoner takes place. And then there's like zones once again 4, 5, 6. I think there's even a zone 7 now. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to like insert a map here anyway, so I will stand corrected. But yeah, there's many zones, but those outer zones is basically where the kind of native Londoners tend to actually reside and live. So yeah, zones 1, 2, and 3 is like where you go to work, to party, to do stuff, to actively engage with the circus and the absolute craziness that London is. And then zones 3, 4, 5, 6 is where people actually tend to usually live. And mostly that is just the case because very central London, although yes, if you look once again on the map, there are some parks, there is bits of nature in central London. Quite frankly, it is not nearly enough nature, and central London is just the pollution capital, in my experience as well. It it can literally be felt and tasted in the air, the amount of pollution and dirt and the lack of nature in central London. Whereas the outskirts of London is where all of the actual nature reserves, parks, and so on and so forth are located. So it's more or less decent to actually reside in the areas on the outskirts of London. However, however, there is a big but here. Not that kind of but. I mean, there's a however here. The case is slightly peculiar for young entrepreneurs, in my eyes, and in the eyes of, I guess, people who I have been interacting with who are in a similar kind of situation of being a young entrepreneur, creative, so on and so forth. Where, as a young active professional, you most likely, at least for the first like 2, 3, maybe if you're risky enough, even 4 years of building your career, building whatever business you're doing, or in general just trying to make something of yourself, you most likely want to live closer to the very, very central pieces of London in order to have easy access to all of the events, all of the socializing, the core of life in London, especially before you have a family of your own, before you have kids, especially before you have a car. Yeah, almost certainly you want to be closer to the epicenter of everything, which is zone one. So, I shall also divide London into the north, south, east, and western areas. Because when choosing to come here and live here, it is very, very helpful to understand where geographically things kind of are optimal for you to do whatever it is you're wanting to do. So, I won't go into too much detailed explanation, but basically, for context, I'm an architect by education, so studying the site and the geography around a building is basically what I do. It is innate in my brain, it is imprinted in my mind, so just trust me what I'm about to tell you, okay? If you want a somewhat decent quality of life and don't want to constantly be riddled with anxiety and all sorts of health issues, you want to live in the southwest of London, okay? Zones 2 and 3 in particular, southwest of London. Maybe like a bit more western, maybe a bit more southern, but that general area. And here's why. Once again, look at the map. Do you see this like green bit in the southwest of London? That is kind of Richmond Park, Wandsworth, Clapham Common, stuff like that. The southwest of London, yes, it might be the slightly quote unquote posher, bougier area of London. It might have slightly more expensive rent prices than, let's say, the northeast or the east of London, where a lot of young people tend to go. But it has the greenest spaces and the least pollution in all of London. Plus, once again, the east and the north of London, especially central London, is where all of the youth typically is. The majority of people who are staying in London for more than like 6 months tend to, for whatever reason, I don't know why they do it. Well, I know why, because it's close to all of the events and stuff like that. But most people tend to go to the north and the east of London because the rent is also cheaper there, everything is cheaper there. But trust me, it is not worth it. It is not worth the stress, it is not worth the low life quality. As an architect, I can tell you the environment which you stay in, which you live in, has an immense impact on your ability to be productive and on your ability to actually maintain your mental health. So, investing a bigger amount into the rent that you pay, just trust me, will pay off. So, although, yes, most of the active life, like social events and things like that, happens once again in the north and eastern London, you might actually want to live in the southwest. But you know what? You know what? I'm not saying that this is like a law for everybody. So let's say that you grew up in somewhere like New York, or you grew up in like Shanghai or some other absolutely massive place with an abundance of people. Maybe like you're from Moscow or somewhere like that crazy as well. Then you know what? You might actually be okay in the northeastern part of London. But unless that is your case, so if you're somebody that is not from like a massive metropolitan city and you come especially from somewhere like in Europe or from just like the second capital of some big country, so like you kind of live in a metropolitan but it's not like a crazy crazy metropolitan like once again Shanghai or New York, yeah, you want to go to the greener kind of calmer areas. Because the thing is, the southwest is still, I cannot say that it is the most peaceful place to live. It's just the quality of life is just higher here than in the east of London. Now, as a young entrepreneur, you have a few choices of how you will actually be living, like what conditions you will be living in terms of housing. So there's always the option of renting a room in a shared household. So that seems to be like the most common way that people live here, where you essentially Find a room on resources like Spare Room, which is the one that I used to actually find this little apartment that I'm living in right now, which is, yes, it's not a room, it's an apartment because she's bougie. But yeah, so usually you can find different websites. I will probably try to link like a bunch of them down below of like where you can actually look for houses and apartments to rent. But yeah, so if you want to spend the least amount of money on your rent, then yeah, the best pick that you can get is to have like a shared kitchen, maybe like a few shared bathrooms, and just like rent a separate room because that will give you like the most adequate prices. But then if you want a higher quality of life, once again, then you probably want to have like your own kitchen, an ensuite bathroom, so on and so forth. In which case, what you're looking for is most likely a studio in order to stay within a more or less reasonable budget. So if what you're looking for is a studio, then there's actually multiple options. Whereas one option is also getting a studio within a house because it seems to be quite common that in London, kind of the boomer generation of people that live here tend to buy houses that they then split into multiple studios. So that is always a decent option, especially if you're once again getting your own separate kitchen and you're getting your own separate bathroom. An alternative are the new builds, where you can get a studio in a new building to lease to rent for like typically the rent is like a year minimum. So if you're ready to dedicate a whole year to living in the same place, which I'm usually not, but if you're one of those people who, well, like you can stay in the same location for a year, then yeah, that can also be a good option. However, be prepared that if you're renting from a new build, it is usually going to be very pricey. So it is going to be expensive. Usually the rent like that starts at like about £2,500 a month and upwards. So I think the cheapest that I found for monthly rent in a new build in a decent area in London was, yeah, it was like 2,300 per month. And that was for a 12-month contract. And then a different alternative is co-living spaces. So if you're unfamiliar with co-living and what that is as a concept, it's essentially like university accommodation, but for working professionals and adults. So I will also link a bunch of different co-living options down below in the description. But yeah, essentially co-livings are good in the sense that you also oftentimes have a choice of whether you want to have just like a room with a shared kitchen and shared bathrooms and things like that. So kind of a hostel kind of vibe, living experience, just like in some uni accommodations. And then you also have the options of getting your own studio or even a 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments. Actually, no, in co-living you don't usually get like 2, 3 bedroom apartments, but you can find some that have 1 bedroom apartments. And if comparing renting a co-living space with just renting and finding a studio of your own or a random room in somebody else's house, the core difference is that it is a very certain type of people, of community that live in co-livings. Because in order to even know the term co-living, you usually have to be a millennial because that is kind of the generation that the word started trending with. So typically, if you are yourself a millennial or like a Gen Z or whatever like generation you are, basically once again, a young entrepreneur and you want to find a community of people who are living a similar lifestyle to you, a co-living can be a good option. However, however, for a lot of co-livings, you need to be legally employed in order to be able to actually rent the place. So if you have already registered your company and registered yourself as employed in the company, or you're registered as self-employed, then yeah, once again, co-living, great option because you automatically get a community of like-minded individuals and a lot of co-living spaces that provide like interesting events that you can attend, like bonding experiences. They also usually have like, even if you're renting a studio there, they have like big shared kitchens so that everyone in the co-living can come together for certain celebrations like New Year's and stuff like that and cook together. And like some co-livings, they have like yoga sessions on offer and they provide gym spaces. And yeah, so there's like a lot more opportunity to actually kind of have a built-in community into your moving experience to London. Whereas if you're just like renting a room or an apartment on your own, just like in a random building, like in a random house that you found on some of those like websites, like once again, Spare Room, not sponsored by the way, but could be Spare Room if you're watching this, sponsor me. But yeah, the issue with just like finding a random place yourself is that you don't have a guarantee of what kind of people you're going to be living with. And so, if once again, for example, you're an entrepreneur or a creative artist or something like similar, you might end up living with people who are just like normal working people from the office. And then your lifestyles might end up not really being compatible, for example. Which, if you're friendly and you're a decent human being, shouldn't really be a problem. Like, for example, I'm living with an elderly woman in the house at the moment. And honestly, our lifestyle is actually so very alike. It's actually funny. It's actually hilarious. But I think that I was just like lucky to find a good location. But in other cases, yeah, you have to be very, very careful navigating about who you're going to be sharing your space with and how do your lifestyles actually match and whether they match and whether you're prepared to discuss and make compromises with the person, because especially if you're coming to live in London for a while, trust me, there will be so many situations where you will have to interact with the other people in the shared living space, that yeah, you want to make sure that you are very friendly and are able to compromise. So the best option in my eyes is still getting a studio for yourself in a co-living. But that is once again if you can afford it. If you want a cheaper option, then yeah, a room in a shared household, and then just be okay with having to constantly compromise with others and having to deal with people not always being very clean, not always being very tidy, and just yeah, having to stay on top of everything and sometimes become a little bit of a control freak if you're like me. But anyway, sorry, I'm spiraling. But that's why I call this channel Life Spirals, because this, if you're new here, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, yeah, this is what happens a lot. I go on a tangent and I spiral, but then we always come back. So welcome back. So just also to quickly mention how much you can expect to pay for actually living in London in terms of rent per month. The cheapest option that you can possibly find here will probably be around 600 quid per month. That is like the cheapest that I think I have heard somebody say that they pay for a room. £600 a month. But that is, once again, you have to realize the kind of low-ish standard of conditions that that kind of living situation would provide. And that is £600 a month. So yeah, London is expensive if you haven't realized. That is what you definitely need to expect, is that you will spend a lot of money here. So yeah, that is the cheaper version. And then for a more adequate lifestyle, I would say that the prices per month would start at like 1,500 per month and going above. So for transparency's sake, for the studio that I'm renting right now, I believe this one is 2,000 quid as of the, at least the financial situation as it is currently, as I'm filming this video in the UK. And yeah, for 2,000 quid, what I'm getting is a nice area near a park. I have my own kitchen, I have my own bathroom with a bath, I have a separate room, a separate living space that is kind of like, yeah, living space and kitchen kind of clumped together, hence it's technically a studio. But yeah, so a fairly decent amount of room, enough space to like, I have a washing machine, I have like all of the amenities that I pretty much need. So it's kind of like staying in a hotel, but also having your own kitchen, which is, yeah, lovely, lovely. So to me, that's worth £2,000. Considering once again that I'm living next to a park and also have very, very easy access links to the overground and the underground and buses and any shop that I need right here in the area. So yeah, if you want like a really good life, like really decent life quality, then £2,000 is probably how much you will be spending a month. If you want a somewhat decent life quality, then like yeah, 1,500 per month. And if you're okay making a lot of compromises and living in a mess, then £600 per month. And lastly, from the important points about living and like actually residing in London is obviously the weather conditions, which you have to be prepared for, because so why I'm putting it like right here, in the section with the housing and rent is because in England there is a big problem with the architecture, because any house that was built up until basically like this century, maybe late 20th century, the insulation is terrible. You have to be prepared that most windows, especially in old houses, are single glazed. They're not double, not triple glazed. So, because the weather in London, the stereotypes are true, it rains a lot here, and it is very cold. For most of the year, the temperature stays around like maybe 5 degrees. I would say is the average temperature across most of the year. Yes, you do get times in the year, like for example, July, August, when it gets warm and even hot, and actually boiling hot and stuffy, and that's when the pollution gets 1,000 times worse than it usually is, where the temperatures rise to like 25, 30, on occasion 35 degrees. And yes, you also have weather conditions where sometimes the temperature goes below 0 degrees to like -1. I think the lowest that the temperature has been since I moved to London was like, yeah, -1, -2. It has been lower historically before, but global warming, blah blah blah. So -1 is the coldest that you can expect it to go, and 30 degrees is probably the hottest that you can expect it to go. And once again, the insulation in the houses is terrible. The heating system in the houses, especially like in the older houses, is not very good either. So always have a lot of clothing options and have a versatile set of pajamas as well, is what I can definitely recommend to you. So have some onesies, have some hoodies, have some warm trousers. Like for example, this, you think I go outside in this? No, this is my pajamas. Yeah, because it's cold. Because this house is old. So yeah, and in your builds, like in your apartments, that is also like why you might actually want to pay the price for a newer building, a newer establishment, is like where they actually do have the double and the triple glaze, and they have proper heating systems, and they have proper like air condition. Actually, air conditioning is still an issue anyway, usually. But yeah, at least there's some hope in those buildings. So if you're ready to spill some moolah, then yeah, definitely go for a new build. But generally, expect the weather conditions to be very, very dodgy, and expect to get cold most of the year. Expect it to be raining, expect it to be foggy, expect it to be moist, and generally unpleasant. And then suddenly get really, really hot and boiling and sweaty, like in the middle of the summer and in the end of the summer. But yeah, so that's the general consensus for the living situation here. Now, in terms of actually your working life here in London, once again, because this video is oriented at entrepreneurs and creatives and people trying to set up a business of their own, I will focus on those types and spaces for that type of work in particular. I will not discuss what the situation is for other working professions, because quite frankly, I have the knowledge of kind of what it's like, but I don't have the experience of it because I have not actually been legally employed in London and never wanted to be. So I cannot give you information on that. So let's start with freelancing. So if you are a digital freelancer, which is probably the easiest thing that you can do here in London in order to actually like sustain yourself and like start building a brand and a business and an image and whatever else, um, chances are you will most likely be working from home. Hence, I actually made the section about housing so big, as well as because if you're a freelancer, it is going to be the place where you spend probably the most of your active time. But obviously, there's also the option of going to cafes and social spaces to work. However, the issue with doing that is that in England and in London in general, typically most places only stay open until about 6 p.m. Maybe some places stay open until like 9, 11 p.m. very latest. But that was kind of a big culture shock for me personally moving here, is that, for example, where I'm from in Russia, a lot of cafes even stay open 24/7. And definitely places like libraries and things like that, they can be open at night very easily as well. That is not the case in England. In England, most things close at 6 p.m. and open at around like 7, 9 a.m. So if you have a kind of more or less normal working schedule where you come from, for example, a job that is 9 to 5, so your entrepreneurial setup is also to do the work from 9 in the morning until 5 in the evening, and then you can just like peace out and go home and not consistently be anxious that you could be doing more work, then yeah, you know what, working in cafes and libraries, and also another option is going to, for example, galleries and museums, because they also have libraries and cafes there, and they can just like generally be nice places to sit down and work. Yeah, those can be good options. However, chances are, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to make something of yourself, especially in the peer pressure that is very much present in London, in the grind culture that is very present in London, you will not just be working during the day, you will also be working in the evening, and you will be working at night, and you will be staying up late and wanting to do more work and thinking of, oh yeah, I can do some more research about this and that, and I can probably give a call or send a message to this person, blah, blah, blah. So chances are you will also want to work at night. So this is also where places called co-workings come in. So although co-workings kind of operate as most normal establishments in England where they don't stay open at night, at least most co-working facilities, at least that I know of, stay open until like, yeah, 9, 11 p.m. and can be more reliable than working in, once again, cafes, libraries, and social spaces. And so if you don't know what a co-working space is, it is essentially an open space, usually an open space office, where it is not just an office or a space that is dedicated and owned by a single company, but is instead like a working spot that you can rent for yourself and your team if you have a team. So it's like a very reasonably priced option for, once again, entrepreneurs, small businesses, or freelancers, where usually they provide amenities such as Wi-Fi, some like basic kitchen utensils like a microwave, kettles. Like they sometimes have like cafes and things like that included in the co-working space. They have laptops, they have IT centers. They usually have some like nice chill zones and yeah, just like general areas to distract yourself. Maybe like a ping pong table and just whatever else to essentially take the model that Google has created, like the standard for what a good office space and working conditions are, and make those kind of conditions available for people to just like rent for however long they want to. Like you can find places where you can like rent a space to work for just a day, for a few weeks, for a few months, or for like a whole year. And then you're just like free to come in and leave whenever you need to, as long as like you're registered and booked there. So in terms of cost efficiency, I would say that maybe if you're a freelancer and very much work on your own, it might not be the best option unless you really need that kind of air of responsibility around you in order to actually stay productive. So if you're one of those people where you need to see other people being productive and working on their business in order for you to stay productive, then yeah, it might be worth it to work in a co-working, even if you're a freelancer. However, if you're very much self-driven and self-motivated, to be honest, it doesn't make that much sense to pay that much money to rent a co-working space. And you might want to stick to just like working from home and working in like social places. However, if you have a team, if you're collaborating with other individuals, then co-working is definitely a very, very good solid option that I can recommend. And to build on the topic of co-working spaces, if you are a creative person, so if your business revolves around actually making something, like if you're a painter, a musician, a pottery artist, or whatever other type of creative that you can be, there is obviously a lot of workshops available in London. And typically they operate on a similar kind of basis as co-working spaces, where you can usually find a workshop that is relevant to your particular industry, to your particular niche, and rent a studio there on certain days of the week for whatever set amount that the place offers. And they will usually provide you with all of the required amenities that you might need to actually complete your projects and create your work. And so if we return for a little bit to the geography of London, essentially what you can expect, right, in terms of your working conditions and what you might actually want to base your living decisions on top of as well, are once again the general areas where all of these things are generally placed. So let's spiral in a backwards direction for a second. So let's start with, if you are in the creative industries, if you're an artist, a designer, a maker by hand. Most workshops and things like that are indeed located in the northeast and in the east of London. So it is still typically zones 1, 2, and 3, but it is that like general northeastern area that all of those things are placed. And so I would still recommend living in the southwest London because you can always take a train or a bus there, but just be prepared that it will take at least an hour to travel from the southwest to the northeast because it is literally the other side of the city. But you know what? If you're like me and you prioritize your health and mental health, especially above everything, it is a worthy investment to travel for an hour to whatever studio you decide to rent. Especially because there are still typically studios all over London. Like there is always options all across. So in the southwest, there is also like a lot of artist studios here. But it just happens that there's most of them, most artistic locations and studios are placed in the northeast of London. And that also ties into networking straight away as well. So I will actually join these sections kind of together. Where, yeah, if you are starting a business, working in some creative industry, freelancing, doing whatever, you probably want to work in a place where you can connect to people of a similar mindset in a similar industry and network. So, yeah, that is why you want to pick the location carefully. So once again, if you're creative, most artist events, makers workshops, places to rent, social gatherings, concerts, and things like that, once again, do happen in the northeast and in the east of London. So if you're creative, that is kind of where you will probably be spending most of your time. Now, if you are in tech, in the tech sector, then I would say East and just Central London are generally the places where you are most likely to be working and operating and networking in. And the main reason for that is obviously because in Central London and kind of like Eastern Central London is where Canary Wharf is, and that just, for whatever reasons that I'm not going to go into, is like where most IT kind of business and finance people tend to operate, but especially IT people tend to operate. I cannot say in any way that it is a nice place to be, that it is a nice area to navigate or to stay in or to, in general, exist and vibe in. But just statistically, from what I have noticed, most social events, most networking events, and opportunities and business meetings and lectures and seminars for IT people and people in the tech industry do happen around like the Canary Wharf area. And then next to the Canary Wharf area is London City, which is like the business and finance capital. So if you're dealing with business in finance in particular and legal services and all of that stuff, statistics, whatever, then yeah, also Canary Wharf and London City is where you are most likely to find the most relevant people, communities, events, and all that sorts of stuff. And now, finally, if your business is in sectors such as hospitality and tourism, then where you want to go is actually West London ish. So, still very much like very, very central. So, still, it is going to actually not still 100% be zone 1 of London, but it is more likely to be like the west side and potentially the south side of zone 1 of London. So if you're in hospitality, tourism, and also luxury business, so maybe like luxury fashion, things like that, because those are areas with places such as like Hyde Park, Soho, Mayfair. Well, okay, Soho, Mayfair is literally like the very, very center. They're like in none of the directions. They are like the core of London. But then like you have Kensington and all of those places, which are, I guess, more western if we look at the geography of London. So yeah, if you're in any of those like super super expensive and good money making sectors, the sectors that I really really like, but I'm not personally in, but just I respect that. I respect the grind. Yeah, so very very central London and West Central London is where you will be finding most of your opportunities and striking most of your luck. Oh, and actually, of course, how could I forget also the food and the lifestyle sectors? So, if you are an entrepreneur in the food industry, I really cannot pinpoint you to exactly where you might be located in London most of the time because there is a very, very diverse set of dining experiences in London. But generally, I would reckon it would also be touristy areas, like along with all of the hospitality people. That is like the very, very central core of London. But also, you might have a lot of luck in the east central London. So in places like Camden, Shoreditch, and all of those areas, because those seem to have a lot of the kind of new up and coming trendy eating spots and so on and so forth. And if you're in the health and lifestyle and wellness sector, so like if you are building a business that is centered around like fitness and so on and so forth, then that is a more peculiar one because that will entirely depend on who your client base is. But all I can say is that a lot of events, once again, because a lot of youth and a lot of young people live in like northeast London, there is a lot of like, at least to my knowledge, gyms and yoga spaces, yoga sports, trendy like sports events, spaces and things like that that are located there. However, at the same time, because all of the posh people tend to live in the southwest of London, if your client base is kind of the more middle-aged posh people kind of user, then you might want to actually locate yourself where your clients and users will be, which is the southwest of London. Now, while I'm still on the topic of work and haven't finished that topic yet, I will quickly give an honorable mention to the legal situation with registering a business in the UK. So, if you yourself are British, are a citizen, then really registering a business here is not that big a deal. All you need to do is like find a company who will help you register your business, go to the government.co.uk website, register the LLC or whatever module your business would operate under, or register yourself as self-employed and pay your taxes as you do, and that is really it. So all of the financial calculations and stuff like that is very, very standard, doesn't really deviate from just being a freelancer. And there's plenty of resources out there on YouTube on how to register yourself if you're a resident here. However, now this is why I'm personally leaving London and leaving the UK and realize that I cannot strike luck here. Um, because I'm not a citizen of the UK, things are a lot more complicated. So if you are a foreigner, even because of Brexit, now that applies to foreigners from the European Union as well. Used to not, hence there was so much European business in London, but now that Brexit has happened, European businesses are slowly beginning to get the exact same treatment as any other foreign entrepreneur and business person. So the problem with being a foreigner, especially if you do not have actual legal extensive working experience in London, hence I tailored this video to young entrepreneurs in particular because to me, right, in my eyes, what separates a young entrepreneur from a not young entrepreneur is essentially the amount of professional working experience that you had. And so if you're not a young entrepreneur and you had like been working in an office in somewhere like business or finance for like 10 years, 15, 20 years already, then to be honest, registering a business of your own here won't really be difficult because you have a whole credit history, you have a tax history, and everything else here. However, my situation, for example, in particular was that I literally couldn't get a job as a foreigner in England because, first of all, I'm Russian and Russians are very much disliked here. And also because even if you have been a student here, which I have been for many, many years, or hence I have been living here for so long, even if you have been studying in the UK for many, many years, very few companies are actually willing to sponsor a visa, especially sponsor a visa of a sanctioned country. So once again, if you're from the European Union, it might not be too bad. So you might be able to like get a visa sponsorship from a company, work with them for a few years while you're just starting to develop your business and kind of avoid a lot of the trouble. And then when you actually go to register your business, have all of the required approval of having paid many, many taxes, having been registered many times. having approving bodies, basically prove that you're a trustworthy individual. However, if that is not your case, and you are either from a sanctioned territory like me, or you just refuse, quite frankly, to work in an office, which is also kind of me, yeah, registering a business here will be very, very difficult because you will need to apply for many checks and you will need to essentially hire an approving body. So when you're registering a business here, you must have a British citizen be there and administer essentially your business for at least the first year that your business operates. So until you hit a certain point of revenue, which I don't remember off the top of my head, if I can find the file, I will include like the numbers somewhere here in the video, where like there is a certain amount standard that you need to be making revenue per year, and I believe it's like the minimum permissible wage in England. That is like the minimum income that a company should be making. So basically, until you hit the milestone of making that revenue, you have to have a legally British citizen administer and actually run your business. So although you can be the founder and the owner of the business yourself, you cannot be the CEO. The CEO has to be British. So the best chance that you have at actually setting up a business here is to receive a sponsorship from a different business or from a company or from the government themselves. Hence, for example, a lot of startup entrepreneurs get into startup incubators or find venture capital firms to work under, because essentially then the startup incubators and accelerators act as the approving and kind of the bodies that give a kind of certainty and guarantee to the government that, you know what, we kind of take responsibility for this person to actually do the work that they're saying they're willing to do and not just like sit around and do nothing, right? So that they're essentially controlling, making sure that there is some kind of an output to your business endeavor. But startup incubators and accelerators and venture capital firms are obviously not going to act as your visa sponsors, though. That is what you have to realize. So if you're deciding to dive into the world of startups in particular, which was kind of my case, it used to be the case that some incubators and accelerators and VCs used to be able to sponsor visas. And even some universities, actually not some universities, quite a lot of universities, if for example you did like a master's in entrepreneurship or something, they were able to actually help you get a startup visa in order to stay in the UK to work on your startup business idea. However, that is not the case anymore. They have cut down and taken the ability away from many institutions. And now, if I remember correctly, there's only about like 3 or 4 very, very particular institutions that are able to give you the approval and the sponsorship for a visa to actually reside here on a startup, so like young entrepreneur kind of visa, and actually work here. So if you are unable to get that, the only way that you can stay in London, in England, and work on setting up a business is to be employed elsewhere or by a different company. Or alternatively, if you have just like graduated university last year, you can also have like the graduate visa and stay here for 2 years after graduation, which was my case, for example. But yeah, otherwise, if you're not on a graduate visa, yeah, you would need to still seek employment in order to actually be legally employed to receive a visa to stay in the UK until you actually have like a big revenue coming into your company, and then you can self-employ yourself in your own company. But that is only going to be an option after maybe like 3 years of actually running your operation. But okay, I can now breathe out. I think I have said I have passed on most general knowledge that I have in terms of like the legal aspects of setting up a business in the UK. And I hope that you can see why it is like, if you decide that you want to start a business in the UK, you have to be absolutely determined and sure that the only place that you can run your business and start your business and develop business for you in particular is in London in the UK. Otherwise, if you're not restricted to your business only succeeding in the case of it being in the UK, I'm sorry, but this is really not a very good option and not a very good place to begin your entrepreneurial journey. You're much better off looking for happiness elsewhere. But if you're like 100 million% sure that your customers, your clients, and so on and so forth can only be found in England, then there you go. But so let's do a little deep breath in. Actually do this with me. You know what to release the stress of talking about business, let's just like have a little practice, just like right in the middle of a video. Hello, I'm actually a certified yoga teacher. So an impromptu little breathing exercise. Sit down, close your eyes down, straighten your back, make sure that you're comfortable. Take a deep breath in, breathe out fully, make sure that there's no oxygen in your lungs. Now take an even deeper breath in. Fill your lungs with that sweet, sweet oxygen that is hopefully not yet polluted by all of the London dirty air. Breathe out once again until your lungs are empty. Take another deep breath in. Hold at the top. And breathe out. And now gently open your eyes. And we're back. We're back. That was a very necessary meditation to release the amount of stress that has piled up from me talking about the business stuff, because trust me, I have suffered through it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little impromptu thing. But anyway, so now to talk about something much more pleasant about living in London, which is the party scene and the communities in London. My favorite part. So the part that I actually found to be somewhat decent here. So depending on who you are, obviously you will have a whole big variety of interests. And the benefit of London is that I'm 99.9% sure that all of the interests that you have can be satisfied here. So whether you're into sports, into the gym, into running, into swimming, into yoga, into meditation, or you're into drinking, into raving, into live music, into death metal music, into fashion, whatever interest you might have, there is a community for it in London, which is absolutely lovely. So, for most events that are centered around hobbies and interests, there are platforms such as Eventbrite and Meetup where you can kind of start your search for those events that are relevant to your niche little interests and curiosities. I will link those apps down below as well so that you can go and like start having a look. And then usually after you go to like a few events that are the more popular and kind of like big and general ones that are usually listed on Eventbrite and Meetup, you will make friends with the people there, and you, through making those friends, you can find out about like where most of those people who belong to those communities generally tend to hang out. And you can like find the communities on Instagram, on like whatever other social media, and find the more niche events that are more interesting to you through actually going and meeting the people in real life first at those bigger, more general events. But once again, when it comes to parties, events, and living a life in London, once again, most of them do tend to happen in the eastern side of London. So there's a lot of wellness things that do happen in the west of London, but that tends to be more towards the, once again, middle-aged kind of class, middle-aged niche of people. So if you're a young entrepreneur, most things are more likely to be happening in the east of London or also in the south of London. So if you're into music, into things like drill, rap, and kind of if you're an enjoyer of the whole roadman, I guess, culture, which I, to be honest, am. I do like the roadman culture in London. I find it funny. I find it absolutely hilarious in this like post-ironic, hyper meta ironic sense. I do love it, and the people in the kind of like drill rap community are actually really really nice. Like once you get to know them, once you get to know the community a bit closer and you get in on it, it's actually really really funny. But you have to be a very certain kind of individual. But the thing is, there is like a lot of joy and pleasure that can be found in those communities, but just as long as you can understand them and understand the levels of irony that are involved in those spaces and with those people. And so yeah, you have to essentially be accustomed to the African British culture in a way to enjoy it, to enjoy the kind of like roadman and drill culture here. But anyway, that is besides the point. That is just like a little niche interest that I happen to like dip my toes into. So if you're into that, then South London is actually like a fun place to go, and you will find a lot of really fun Caribbean kind of African like Afro British things happening in South London. I do love this place. That is like where I have been hanging out for quite a bit. But for pretty much all other interests and all other niches, yeah, East North London is where you are most likely to find your people and your tribe. If you're into fashion, it's probably going to be very central London though. And if you're into things like theatre as well, it is going to be very central London. But for niche interests like once again for example meditation, live music, yoga, spirituality, what else, or also like punk culture, alternative fashion, alternative music, indie groups, hippies, hipsters, like all of those more niche communities are generally located in like yeah northeast central London, so places like Camden and Shoreditch. But besides hobbies and interests, let's talk about the partying in London. So, in general, there's like a few main themes for how you can party when you're in London. The most basic, like low level party, well, no party even, but just like, way to have fun in London seems to be going to pubs, which I cannot personally recommend because that is not something I do or enjoy at all whatsoever, but it is like a major part of British culture going to pubs. So after work, even during work, like at 1 p.m. during the day, you will see a lot of people filling all of the pubs all across London because the people in England love to drink. They love a beer, they love whatever they want. So yeah, a lot of British culture is pub culture. A lot of networking events actually happen in pubs. A lot of live music events happen in pubs. Most things happen in pubs here, unfortunately to me. I'm not judging you if you like drinking, if you like pubs, but I'm just saying I do not resonate with that personally. So, yeah, that is just something that you can expect. Then you have your standard clubs, which is the kind of bars, bars like All Bar One, clubs like Soyo, I guess, Egg, things like that. I don't know too many of them off the top of my head because I'm also not a kind of like basic club enjoyer. But essentially, like if you like just like normal clubs, if you like typical like popular music, you are most likely going to enjoy just that you're going to central London on your night out. Just like that you go to a place like Mayfair and just go into any club there. Or like Soho and stuff like that where all of the tourists go. Like it is there is a certain amount of enjoyment that can be found in that as well. Like once again, I'm not judging. I have enjoyed my time in like normal clubs and bars and things like that as well back in the day. And it can be fun, especially at first, for like the first month of doing so. It is generally like messy, it's kind of disgusting, but you know what? There is a certain beauty and poetry in it. So if you like normal clubs, normal bars, just that you go to central London and hang out there, and you'll find your joy there, and you're gonna be fine. So Soho, Mayfair, and yeah. Then you have your more exclusive VIP events and clubs. In order to get in with those, you usually have to already know somebody. So if you want to get into VIP and exclusive events and clubs, there's essentially no way in until you personally meet a promoter or somebody that goes to those events. And usually you will meet one of those actually in a pub or on a normal night out just by accident, or while hanging out in one of the kind of hobby communities. And then if you want an actual somewhat quality night out, we get to electronic music and raves. So, in terms of DJ sets, there is actually quite a lot of them that happen in once again South London. So one of the reasons why I also like South London is, once again, rap. The rap scene is quite big here. Drill, all of those things, and DJing. So like even if you like things like house music and stuff like that, a lot of events, actually especially for house for whatever reason, happen in South London or once again East London. So Southeast is generally where you will find a lot of DJ sets and things like that taking place. And then if we talk in terms of actual rave culture, so the thing that I actually am a personal enjoyer and participant of, at least have been. I'm kind of out of it now because like I do this thing where I get really, really into something and essentially do it until I'm fully burnt out and can't do it anymore. But so if you're into raves and into proper electronic music, then yeah, definitely East London, East Central London is where you will find your peace, because that is like where Fold is, which is like a good nightclub, Drum Sheds, E1, Color Factory, and a bunch of like much more niche and underground locations are generally placed. And to start your kind of rave scene experience, I will also link it down below. You want to get the Array app. I actually don't know what Array stands for. There's an Array in London that is the Royal Academy, so don't confuse the two, right? There's the Royal Academy, which is an art gallery, which is one thing, and then there's Array Tickets, which is like a platform where you can actually find rave events. So I will link the Array, that is the rave tickets app, down below. So you can actually find a lot of events for pretty much every single day of the week over there. Like whatever DJ sets are happening, whatever is going on, you'll find it on there. And then once, similarly to like VIP and exclusive events, once you are kind of in the culture, in the community, you'll find out about like more and more opportunities and more niche and kind of exclusive and private, little close knit events and communities through actually going out and meeting people. And then if you are the totally opposite side of the spectrum from rave culture, which is also me, I'm actually both. I do love a rave, but I am also abstaining from any substances. I am staying like on a sober lifestyle. And so if you're like me and you're like practicing yoga and mindfulness and all of those things, and you want to stay sober and you don't want to go to raves. I don't know why you don't want to go to raves, but I also get it because like yeah, scary electronic duns music. Then the absolute opposite side of the spectrum once again is a thing called ecstatic dance. So that is something that I have really, really actually enjoyed in the past year. And essentially what ecstatic dance is like a sober rave. So people, everybody who goes there, the main rule is that you cannot drink before going there, you cannot take substances, you cannot do anything of the sort before attending ecstatic dance, because it is actually essentially a shamanic workshop. It is an embodiment and a mindfulness practice. And it is all about like wellness, staying present, being there, staying in a meditative state, even if you're reaching an ecstatic state, it is all still done through like mindfulness and meditation and doing everything consciously. So yeah, you can find ecstatic. Actually, I will link like the two main ecstatic dances that I have been going to down below as well in the description. And so now that we have spoken about wellness, this I think is a good segue to get into fitness and beauty industry in London. So there's not actually too much to say because most things when it comes to beauty and fitness can just like be found on Google very, very easily, very accessible. But essentially, as I already even mentioned as well, there's a lot of sports clubs, things like that here in London. Any sport that you can think of, any activity that you can think of, there is a club for it in London somewhere. All you have to do is actually just like Google the name of the sport and a bunch of locations will pop out, and you just like go and book a class or book whatever it is that you need to, usually through a website, or you call the place up and yeah, can book the activity. And usually most, if it is like a club, like a group-based activity, from what I found, most of them usually take place on like Wednesdays, Fridays, and Thursdays for whatever reason. Just like because I have tried to like join multiple different classes and things like that, and for some reason, all of them are always like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is like the peak time to participate in active lifestyle. And otherwise, if it is not like a class based activity, then there's plenty of gyms, plenty of, once again, wellness spaces, yoga studios, and things like that all over London. There's all sorts of price groups. So actually, I will do a little bit of a section in terms of like going to the gym in London. So if you want a cheap gym option, then there is the gym group, and there's pure gym that are kind of somewhat decent, low priced gym options. And there you can expect to pay around like starting with like £25, typically around like up to £40. So 25 to £40 per month for the kind of lower scale gym experience. Then you have places like Anytime Fitness and Energy Fitness, which are kind of lower priced as well. They're like around 35, 40, and the Jets as well. So I actually really like the Jets, but the Jets is like already getting to a more higher quality gym experience. And at places like Anytime Fitness and the Jets is typically around like 40 to £50 a month. And then after the Jets, so the price point of like £50 a month and up is where you get a lot of boutique gyms. So the kind of much more tailored gym experiences that are not generalized, and where it is actually like nice and neat and clean, and you get like special classes and things like that included in your package. And usually the experience, actually the interior design of the gyms, is just absolutely lush and lovely here. Like that I can definitely respect about London, is the amount of effort that gyms put into their interior design when they start at like the £50 per month price point. If you're ready to give away £50 or more for a gym, then it's really up to you to just like look up whatever posh gym you like, whatever interior you like more, or whether it's like Equinox or something like that as well, like, or Third Space London, actually a really good gym as well. And just pick one that tickles your fancy and that is like located conveniently close to you. So there's a bunch of gyms like that. There's also like a different niche of gyms that you can go to, which are like the hardcore workout gyms. Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with that scene in particular. I have only found out about this like one hardcore workout gym in Bethnal Green. And I don't think that they're like too common or too popular in London. So if you're like a hardcore bodybuilder, your best chance of finding a good gym for that kind of experience would be to actually find bodybuilders who are located in London on Instagram and find out what gyms they go to through their Instagram pages, because that is how like my friend, actually not me, found out about that hardcore gym. So yeah, but otherwise, if you're just like a normal casual gym goer, just literally Google a gym and you'll find plenty of options all around London. And then last but not least, the beauty and health industry in London. So I have personal beef with the spa and beauty industry in London, because the prices that they charge for the service that they provide are absolutely unreasonable, which is another reason that I'm leaving London, because there's just absolutely no way, no way that I'm giving like a minimum of like £150 for a treatment that does flipping nothing, nada for my skin, when I can go back to my home country, to flipping Russia, give like 40 quid away and have everything like perfectly cleansed, get some flipping fillers in the package as well. I don't really get fillers, but I could. For £40, you can literally get fillers for £40 in Russia. And they will actually be high quality fillers. Like £40 is actually like good quality fillers in Russia. So, it's a pain and yeah, yeah. It's painful. It's not good. It's not good. So basically, if you need to get skin treatments and beauty treatments, do not do them in London. It is not worth it. It is low quality. It is just, yeah, just not good. Get your beauty treatments elsewhere, like preferably somewhere in Eastern Europe, because Eastern Europe and also like Arab countries and like the Emirates and Dubai is where like they actually do things of quality. But anything else, surgical procedures, oh, absolutely no in London. Surgical procedures, that's like probably Japan, Korea, maybe like Vietnam and Thailand is where you want to go for those, but definitely also not London. So nothing to do with like people touching or inserting something into your face, needles or like cutting or whatever. Definitely do not pay for any of that to be done to you in London. It is horrid, it is terrible, even though the people are supposed to be certified and super educated, they know nothing. They know nothing about beauty. They know nothing about how to actually do beauty procedures because I'm sorry, I don't want to be mean, but like look at British people. I don't want to I don't want actually I'm leaving the country anyway. What are you gonna do to me? If you're British and you're watching this, I'll spit in your face. Like I love you British people, honestly. I do like British culture, like there is certain beauty to it. But if you're a white British woman, I'm sorry for you, is all I'm gonna say. Like I'm sorry. As a Russian, I know I'm not like the top specimen of like what beauty of the East has to offer, but come on, mate. Come on, mate. I don't know what is wrong with British people and beauty, but it's just British people and beauty just do not combine. They just do not work together. So yeah. Just like if you want to get to understand the standards of beauty services in England, just look at British women. Is all I'm gonna say. And the prettier British women are those who have actually never had any procedures done. So yeah, just saying, stay away from beauty procedures in London is probably what I'm going to end this whole rant on. If you want to get a good haircut in the UK and in London, you have to kind of like know where you're going. It's like getting a tattoo. So if you want to get like a manicure or your hair done in London, treat it the same way that you would treat getting a tattoo done. So you have to do very, very niche, very careful research of the professional that you're going to, of the salon that you're going to, look at their portfolio, look at the works that they do, and don't experiment. Stick to what you know, stick to what is safe, and definitely always over describe in a lot of detail precisely what you want done. Because if you just go in and tell them that, oh yeah, like just I just want something pretty, like what do you think would suit me? They will give you the worst experience of your life. Like you will not come out looking good. People in London for some reason have like no taste. They have no sense of taste. Once again, in Russia, you can go to like just like a normal average salon and they will recommend to you, they will tell you exactly what will look good on you, and they will like beautify you, and you will walk out of the salon looking like a transformed human being, looking like a flipping Victoria's Secret model. In London, that is not the case. You will walk in looking like a Victoria's Secret model and will walk out looking like a trash bag. Like I'm sorry, but you can see the state of my hair. Like, oh, let's just get honest here for a second. This is not what I actually look like. This is me after London, okay? Because in London, beauty just doesn't beauty. It is just not a thing. If you see beautiful people in London, it's because they get treatments and procedures done outside of London. They don't get anything done in London because the beauty industry here sucks, quite frankly. So yeah, don't do any beauty services in London unless you like really, really, really research and know who you're going to and you absolutely trust that they will not mess you up. So yeah, that is what I can say about beauty. And then finally, when it comes to spa, in terms of relaxation and massage therapies and acupuncture and alternative medicine treatments, that is actually somewhat decent in London. Like I have found quite a lot of like decent Chinese owned like traditional medicine shops and acupuncture centers and things like that. And honestly, they're quite good here. So like when it comes to traditional alternative therapies and massage therapies, honestly, even the like small dingy establishments somewhere like next to a corner shop, a lot of the time are actually quite good. Okay, not acupuncture because I'm sorry, but for acupuncture you actually have to be like a certified medical professional. So if you're gonna go for something like acupuncture, do your research as well. Make sure that they have all of the certificates and the education. But if you just want a massage, if you want like a Thai massage, a Scandinavian massage, stuff like that, honestly, most places here are really good, really safe, quite clean as well. So just Google once again spa near you and get a massage there, and it will most likely be like quite decent. Can't say that it's gonna be like super good. It's not like Turkey, for example. It's definitely not like being in Thailand, but you know, it'll make do. It'll make do. But all in all, to be honest, the price point, even for massages here, is still, in my eyes, absolutely unreasonable. It's not too different from how much it costs in Russia, but just like comparing price to quality, questionable. But yeah, I think I think that is most base knowledge that you might need if you're moving to London. I think that is all of it. So this video has been long, and I hope that you have gained any and all information that you needed from it. I tried really, really hard to summarize everything, but there's just so many aspects and nuances to living in London that I can't make it in under like 30 minutes, definitely 100%. I hope that this video doesn't exceed an hour. I hope, but I cannot promise. But essentially, to finish off, to give you a summary of going to London as an entrepreneur or as a freelancer or as a creative. If you decide to go here, you essentially have to 100% be sure that this is the place that you're dedicated to, that this is the only place where you can see your future, this is the only location where you can see yourself succeed. It's like if you're obsessed with London, if you're absolutely obsessed with Britain, if you're obsessed with the idea of becoming like a British citizen or something, and if the only like your niche clientele, your niche client base is only based in London and in the UK, then yeah, it can be worth coming here. But if that is not the case for you, like if you're not 100 billion% sure that London and England is where you want to live and stay forever, honestly, like just don't come here for a year. Come here for like 3 months first. Try to live here for 3 months if you just want to suss out the vibe. If you want to kind of understand what is what and who is who, come here for 3 to 6 months. Stay here, see how you vibe, and base your decision kind of on that. But also don't over dedicate yourself until you have been here for like at least a year total. Because London is a whole separate type of experience. It's a carousel of madness, as I said at the start. And you have to be absolutely in love with it, and it has to be absolutely perfect for your lifestyle and for who you are as a person in order to live here. And you have to absolutely be sure that you know how to make money and that you know how to spend money, because it is expensive, expensive to live here. But so yeah, if you're ready to spend all that money that will be leaving your bank account while living here, then yeah, you know what, London can be quite good, but just be prepared. That it's going to be expensive, it's going to be stressful, and the life quality will not be that high. Even if you spend like many thousands of pounds a month, your life quality will be lower than in most other countries. Like, okay, not most other countries, but like in your home country, it will 1000% be lower than in your home country. So it might be a better option to consider going to somewhere in Europe or to like Australia or Canada or somewhere else. Because yeah, England, you have to essentially believe in the cult of England in order to live in England. Otherwise, just I don't see the worth in it. Coming here for education, yeah, absolutely reasonable. The universities in the UK and in England are some of the best in the world, even arguably better than American universities and American education. However, work life here is very questionable, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So, as much as it's like a somewhat good client base that is rich, I don't know if it's worth it. At the end of the day, it hasn't come out to be worth it for me, so obviously I'm biased. You might have a totally different experience from me. I am just conveying everything that I have managed to learn and experience while I was here, from my vantage point, from my point of view. You have a totally different set of your own value systems, of your own goals, of your own lifestyle choices, and things like that. And chances are it is nothing like mine. So, you know what? You might actually enjoy it a lot more than I did. But I said what I said, and I have given reasons for why I believe what I believe. And the main thing is that I have given you a warning about how flipping expensive London is, and how polluted it is, how dirty it is, and how much your skin will suffer. So, yeah, if you're prepared for that, if you're prepared for the hard water, for the tasteless food, flavorless food, quite frankly, especially now after Brexit, for the horrible air, for all of the noise, for the overpopulation, for the massive amount of tourists, for the super loud sirens that the really annoying police and like ambulance trucks are constantly making here. If you're okay with all of that and you're generally not a very anxious person, if you're neurotypical, then London can be fun and interesting and good. Especially if you consume alcohol. Like I understand why people go to the pub here all the time. There's like no way, in my eyes, that a person can actually enjoy staying in London unless they're pretty much constantly drunk. But if you enjoy a drink, if you're a bit of an alcoholic who also has too much money, then yeah, come to London. Come to London, Habibi. But yeah, yeah. I hope you found this informative, and quite frankly, my voice box hurts now because I have been chatting for way too long, and I'm just burnt out and exhausted by the general experience of being in London. Raving here has been fun. I did love the raves. I did love ecstatic dance. I did love like the little family that I managed to have with the people from ecstatic dance for the short while that I have been going to it. But honestly, I'm burnt out, and the whole experience of living in London is just absolutely not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. So I'm finally leaving, and I'm dipping back to go home, to go to Russia, and finally sort out my skin. I can't wait. I'll finally see my clinician, you guys. And yeah, hopefully I never have to come back to the UK ever again. So yeah, once again, I hope this was a helpful, informative video, and wish me luck with my move. I don't know where I will go from Russia because I'm probably also not going to stay in Russia, but for the time being, I'll see you next time, probably from Russia. So yeah, have a good time and have fun, and good luck with your entrepreneurial journey, whatever you're doing. I believe in you, I believe in your business. You will succeed and you'll do well. And believe in yourself and love yourself and all that good stuff. Bye. Yeah.